It's the start of another game week here for Auburn football in the 2021 season. You know what that means. It's time for another press conference with head coach Bryan Harsin. Let's talk about the South Carolina week press conference, the questions he was asked and his answers, and our analysis of it. Welcome to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. Our content here and on our podcast network may tend to be Auburn sports heavy, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you never miss any content. Thank you to members of our booster club like Kevin Nelson, who helped produce videos like this. Always would remind you to go check out the press conference in full so you actually get what was said, the answers, the questions, and you're not just taking my word for it. However, this is going to be our breakdown of it, our kind of summary of everything, because usually these things are very long. I want to just give you an overall impression of what was said, what was asked, and just a little bit of an analysis on our part. Usually, I like to start off with what Coach opens up with, and let me just tell you, there wasn't much this week. And I don't know if it's Coach was in a sour mood, and why wouldn't you be after that performance against Mississippi State? But very short answers at time, and short in tone as well, if you catch my drift. He did address that Bo obviously is going to be out for the rest of the season because of the surgery on his broken ankle. Again, if you guys haven't checked out our video on that, we've gotten some pretty good information exactly what the surgery was. I'll put a link up there right now if you want to check that out. I would encourage you to do so because it gives you a little impression of what to expect in terms of recovery and things like that. And it's a familiar injury and procedure that another famous football player in college has had in recent years. Anders will also be out for the rest of the season because of a surgery that he will have upcoming. I don't know if that's already happened. As of yesterday in the press conference, it obviously hadn't. Coach stressed the need for others to be ready and step up to fill the roles vacated by these two key components of the offense and special teams. There were no really thoughts at all. I can't even think of one that he said about South Carolina. Now, a lot of the questions and answers that were given to this are going to have implications on South Carolina, but no discussion of key players to watch or anything like that. Just really not a great week for looking ahead towards South Carolina right now, really addressing all the many things that happened during, around, and after the Mississippi State game. He was asked about Bo's toughness and plans for the future. He agreed and reiterated how awesome that is to see out of a guy like Bo, but he's known about that all along. People are acting like this is a new thing. This kid has showed resilience and toughness throughout his entire career, whether it's mental, with the way he's treated by fans at sometimes, or whether it's physical. He did it in a bowl game where he played hurt basically through the whole game because he knew his job was on the line and had to show the new coach coming in that he deserved to be the starter. And obviously, he did. He did mention that Bo's in good spirits, and while they've had no major discussions about what's going to happen after his recovery, he did mention, I think a lot of people might have missed this, that Bo needs to be focused on getting through the injury, the recovery process, and getting ready for stuff that they'll do in the offseason. I find that interesting. And now a lot of you will remember that I have been not a proponent, but very adamant that he was not going to come back after this year for various reasons. And now I'm starting to shift my opinion. In fact, I'm almost ready to say completely 100% that he will be back. I think the injury, I think the way I'm hearing it discussed by Coach and others, that he probably will be back next year. But I'm still going to wait a little bit of time because I don't like to step out right now with so much up in the air at the moment. With the injury to Bo, obviously discussion now moves to the quarterback, TJ Finley, and thoughts on what Coach thinks about him. Coach says that he prepares and practices like a starter every day, and you just never know when your opportunity is going to arise. It came in the form of Bo not getting it done to the Georgia State game already once. Now it's come in the form of injury. You just never know. And TJ has shown that he has prepared himself already once. So I have full confidence that this guy is going to do the best possible job out there and may surprise us a little bit. Coach said that he's seen and done all he needs to be successful. The difference is you just have more reps with Bo. So obviously Bo has had more time to figure all these things out. So there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way with trying to get TJ acclimated to be the starter for the last 2 or 3 games of the season. The plays will not change, he said, all that much. Obviously, you have to kind of maybe tailor things a little bit towards the type of player your quarterback is, but there won't be much of a change whatsoever. The biggest thing for him is that guys around TJ need to step up. Specifically called out guys like Kobe, Nick Brahms, Tank Bigsby. And let me reiterate this. I'm not saying called out in the sense of that they're not getting the job done now, although there has been some discussion about that, their respective positions at least. They just need to make sure that TJ feels supportive because there's already going to be a lot of pressure because, I mean, my gosh, he has to play in the Iron Bowl as the starter as of this moment. So they really have to make sure they're taking care of their jobs. Tank's got to run the ball, hit the holes well, and help get some more yardage, get that running game going. Kobe has to be the leader of the wide receivers and continue to catch balls. And Nick Brahms, oh, buddy, you got to get that offensive line going there. Questions also shifted towards Demetrius Davis, the fan favorite. You know, it's always the guy after the guy that's the team favorite. The backup quarterback or the backup quarterback is always the favorite one. Coach has said that there's no conversations right now about using him at this moment. Obviously, things can change, but Grant Loy's the backup, followed by Trey Lindsey. And I know this makes a lot of you upset, but let me just give me a second here, okay? Clearly, he's not ready in some form or fashion. Maybe that's because he hasn't shown out in the practice field that he's ready. Maybe that is because they're just truly saving him, trying to not put him in a situation where he doesn't need to be. We don't know that. When we make statements about Demetrius Davis needs to be out there, that we are operating with 25% of the information, if that. They are operating with all the information when they make these decisions. You need to put that to rest. Demetrius Davis is not ready, or else he would be out there. Who knows? We could have to see something change, and maybe he does come out there at the end. Some more questions about playing Bo after the injury, and Coach kind of gave us a timeline about how all this happened. It happened during a routine situation, standing in the pocket, and a player was pushed back into him, falling on top of his foot and his ankle, which resulted in the injury. You know, a lot of people have criticized Bo for his happy feet at times, especially in previous seasons, and yes, that might actually be a case. But even Coach said that there's a certain process that has to go through a quarterback's mind on top of the other 1,000 things they're processing about when you stand in the pocket that long, that you've got to be aware of your surroundings and try to maybe move your feet out of the way of things that are going to be happening around you if you can see them. Some of that, again, on the offensive line, looking at you guys again. And I'm not blaming them for this injury, but I am saying that there's a certain element of that all parties involved have to be aware of. So when you criticize Bo for happy feet, maybe take a little look back at this injury and understand why there might be a tendency to do that. They also believe the injury happened on this initial play and there was no indication of it happening after it. Coach was asked, was it his decision to put Bo back in there, or was it just the medical staff? He said flat out, it's the medical staff's decision. Obviously, they are the professionals and you have to defer to what they say. If they say he's good, then they're going to play him. And as I've said before, I've got a medical professional in the household here, and she even said, yes, it's possible with adrenaline, all that stuff, to play on top of these things. Sometimes you just don't know how hurt you are until it starts to set in. Also asked about TJ coming in late, and since we were playing Bo for most of that game, Bo, again, appeared fine and that he was able to go through it, but there was a point that he couldn't do it anymore. The limping had finally started to set in. As we've already discussed, that can be the case. And think about this, TJ's also provided a spark once before. He's shown that he'll put TJ in there if he thinks he's the thing that can get things going, and it worked last time. Why wouldn't it work again? You got to find out. Obviously it didn't, but that's really not on TJ. He's also asked if the run game's going to change now with Bo not being a factor in it. The Bo element is undeniable, but TJ does have the ability to run, Coach said. When you run with the quarterback, it's not so much about their ability as their decision-making, because you'll never get to use that ability if you don't make the correct decisions. When to run, when not to run, how far to roll out, all that stuff goes into that. TJ has that ability, and it'll be interesting to see how maybe he does a little bit differently than Bo. In terms of the overall running game, how will it change and has it improved? Coach said, yeah, maybe there's been some improvements, but they really haven't taken the next step. So he's not even mincing words here. We all know it's bad, and he does too. Coach was asked about the defense as well and where they had some success in the first half. The second half, it didn't seem to carry over. Now, they did say that the things that were successful, they were still seeing and executing on somewhat in the second half. It's just that Mississippi State out-executed them, which is clearly the case. He also stressed that just because the defense was not getting the job done, they still have to have support from the offense, which I totally agree with. If your defense doesn't feel like they've got the offense to support them, that's going to really hurt your morale and probably going to affect how you perform on the field as well. It was just a mess of a situation in the second half altogether. Lastly, some special teams thoughts here. They're still working through who's going to be Anders' replacements, although Ben Patton will get a solid shot at being the next kicker. Other special team stuff, there are a lot of penalties, some of them questionable. We're not even talking about the whole targeting thing. They still have to work through not allowing those to be in situations where they can be called, even though some of them are very questionable. On the field goal block, it was poor technique, he said. The low kick may have been an issue, but if you have good blocking, if you have good technique and not letting a rush up the middle, that's not a problem. So, in that instance, it just seems like blocking for us all together, whether it's offensive line or special teams blocking, is just not our forte this year. So that's most of the questions, our summary of it all, and analysis. I want to know from you now, what did you think about the press conference, things that were asked and said in the comments section below? Let's keep that conversation going. If you enjoyed this type of content, please help support it by smashing that like button. If you want more content from us, be sure to hit the subscribe along with the notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live stream. There are also other ways to help support us listed in the description below, such as becoming a Booster Club member or a channel member here on YouTube, both starting at $1 a month. Thank you for tuning into the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. War Eagle.